All right, it looks like we're getting ready to start the presentation now. I want to thank you all for waiting while attendees are populating into the webinar. Thank you for joining us for the online presentation and the live Q&A today. We're going to talk about the planned improvements to the Interstate 15 Gore Hill Interchange, which is exit 277 in Great Falls. My name's Brandon Coates, and I'm a sub-consultant to MDT on the project. We'll do more introductions here soon. The Montana Department of Transportation is using these online meetings and presentations to engage in projects rather than in-person meetings due to community health and safety concerns during the COVID-19 pandemic. We look forward to future opportunities to meet in person again, but until then, we'll be continuing with some online presentations and these live question and answer sessions. So today, MDT and the project team are going to present the planned improvements for the interchange, the new design features, and we'll talk about the next steps in the project. Immediately following the presentation, we'll have a live question and answer session to answer your questions. On the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A button, and that's your opportunity to ask us questions during the presentation. You can submit those questions all through the presentation as they arise, and we'll hold on to all questions, and then we'll answer them all at the end after the presentation. So the online session is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be posted on the project website starting Thursday, October 15th. And we'd like to invite you to ask your neighbors, coworkers, and friends that couldn't attend the session to view the presentation and submit comments by going to the project website, and that is at mdt.mt.gov.pubinvolve/Gore-Hill. And we'll have that link at the end of this presentation as well. So same page that you went to register for the session. So on that website, there's also an online survey, and the online survey will be available until October 27th, and then we will do the results of the survey. So with that, again, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn over the microphone now to the MDT District Administrator from the Great Falls District, Jim Wingerter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Brandon, thank you for that explanation, and welcome to this unique way of presenting public involvement and having a public meeting in these unique times we are living in at this present moment. I am Jim Wingerter, the Great Falls District Administrator for the Montana Department of Transportation here today. We have with us a number of folks online to present and help answer questions as we get to that phase of the program. Our design team involves Robert Pesha and Associates. They are our main designers on this project. And we also are working with the City of Great Falls, keeping them informed of the direction we're kind of heading and what we're looking at for the Gore Hill Interchange. So you might be wondering why MDT would include a consultant design in some of our projects. We maintain the resources and abilities to design and perform a number of functions in-house with MDT, with our district and our headquarter designers. However, there are times when we do have a project or issues that require technical expertise that we may need some help in designing a project. And this is one of those projects where there's a lot going on up there. There's a lot of things that we need to take a look at, and we need to be very aware that when we do put a solution together, it includes all these areas, and we get the best product that we can. So when we don't have those resources or technical expertise, we hire consultants, in this case, Robert Pesha, to do our project work for us. So they are essentially an extension of our MDT team. they provide all the expertise for us, and we maintain a relationship with them through our consultant design unit. And so while they are separate from MDT, they're really part of our team. We work very closely with them in managing these projects and coming to agreement on what we want to do for project solution. So I'll go through right now and introduce some of the team members that we have with us today. First of all, Jim Combs, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Combs. I'm the Great Falls District Projects Engineer.
Thank you, Jimmy. Kelly Williams.
Yeah, good morning or afternoon, Jim. My name is Kelly Williams. I am the Consultant Design Project Manager for MDT.
Thanks, Kelly. Stan Brinlin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Stan Breland. I am with MDT, and I am the Traffic Operations Engineer.
Thank you, Stan. April Girth.
Hi, this is April Girth. I'm from Robert Petch and Associates, and I am a design engineer for the project.
Thank you, April. Scott Randall.
Yeah, and I'm Scott Randall. I'm also with Robert Petch and Associates. I'm a traffic engineer.
Thank you, Scott. Brandon Coates.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Brandon Coates. I'm with RBCI, and we are the public involvement contractor for the project.
Thank you, Brandon. And lastly is Kate Reed.
Hi, I'm Kate Reed. I work at RBCI and helping today with the Q&A session.
Thanks, Kate. So let's get started on our presentation here. As I said, MDT is in the process of developing some improvements to our I-15 Gore Hill interchange. What we're experiencing up there at the present time is there's a significant amount of traffic due to the Great Falls International Airport, the Montana Air National Guard. We have some substantial commercial and industrial developments taking place and planned for the future. And we also have some residential developments that have taken place and also planned for the future. So it was time that we take a look at this and see how our interchange is going to handle all these developments and traffic in the future. A couple of issues that we're facing up there. We have some tight spacing between the intersections near the interchange. We have some short distances between Gore Hill and 10th Avenue South. And we have some difficulties for large trucks to navigate between the interchanges across the bridge, some difficulties merging onto I-15. And the area is becoming real congested up there with the number of truck traffic, commercial traffic, and private traffic. So the purpose of this project is to try and reduce some of the delays we're seeing, improve traffic flow and safety, especially on that I-15 between 10th Avenue South and the Gore Hill interchanges. So in 2015, we spearheaded a corridor study that took place between Gore Hill and Emerson Junction to see what improvements in that area would be required, to see what we need to do to handle our traffic in that area. And the study identified improvements to the Gore Hill interchange, along with some auxiliary lanes from 10th Avenue South to the Gore Hill interchange. Again, as you can see on the screen, some of the information that came out of that study I just talked about. But in 2018, the Great Falls Area Long Range Transportation Plan update that we developed along with the City of Great Falls outlined these improvements, and we began to address these in our current plan and with what we're working on right now at the present time. So again, in 2015, we planned our study. 2018, We did the long-range transportation plan updates the spring of 2019 and through the summer of 2020. We were looking at some alternates that were presented at a public meeting. We're continuing to go forward with some of those alternates, and there were 4 improvements that were readily identified for our Gore Hill interchange. First were the two roundabouts that we're looking at on the north and southbound ramps. We're looking at rerouting Tri-Hill frontage road traffic, and we're looking at adding a southbound auxiliary lane between 10th Avenue South and Gore Hill. All of these will be presented here a little bit later in this presentation. So hang tight, and you'll see what all those we're referring to. So we presented these at a public meeting in 2019, and a 5th improvement based upon public input was also included in this Gore Hill interchange improvement, and that was a new interchange overpass bridge. So right now we are in the working on our final design plans. We're trying to decide what will be best up there and cost efficient to take care of all the issues that we're looking at. 2021, we want to present a final design to our public, hopefully in a public forum meeting and not virtually as we are today. And then at that point in time, we will begin the process to move towards construction. And at this point in time, we have not yet programmed construction. We're probably looking out beyond 2025, 2026, somewhere in that time frame, depending upon funding that's available. So that's kind of a quick overview of where we started and where we are today. So at this point in time, I would like to turn it over to April, and she can start going through some of these design specifics that we're taking a look at now. So April, it's all yours.
Thanks, Jim. As Jim discussed in the previous section, MDT had looked at 5 different improvement options from the original study, to address the safety and operational needs at the interchange. So 4 of these concepts were presented at the public meeting in 2019, and those included stop signs, traffic signals, and roundabouts. And then after obtaining public input and evaluating each of these options for how well it met the needs of the project, and the community, expressed their desires, to see how they met what the community thought was important, it was determined that the preferred alternative that we're going to discuss today really did solve the identified issues the best. So the project has several components, as Jim mentioned, including building a wider overpass structure with room for a sidewalk, single lane roundabouts with truck aprons at the on and off ramp intersections, and an additional southbound lane on I-15 and relocation of the Tri-Hill frontage road to the south. So in the next few slides, we'll discuss each of these improvements in more detail. So the initial project proposed leaving the existing overpass structure in place and connecting any new improvements to the old bridge. But after evaluating the comments that we received from the public and discussing some current maintenance issues that we have with MDT snowplow staff, MDT determined that a new structure would be very beneficial and worth the additional cost. So additionally, maintaining traffic over the interstate during construction is mandatory, since this is the only access to the airport and to the emergency services that are located on Gore Hill. So keeping access open while widening the bridge or connecting to an existing bridge would have been pretty difficult. So the new structure will be built offset to the east of the current overpass, so traffic can remain on the existing bridge during construction, and traffic impacts and delays will be much more minimized with the new structure. So the new bridge is also going to be wider, and it's going to include 12-foot travel lanes, 8-foot wide shoulders, and a new sidewalk on the west side. So the wider bridge design also will help accommodate the large vehicles that use this so much, ease with MDT's maintenance efforts, and provide some safer passage for pedestrians and bikes. So as mentioned previously, MDT evaluated a range of options, and those included signals, roundabouts, and stop signs, and then determined the best way to improve safety and traffic operations at the interchange intersections. So after evaluating each option for traffic flow, delay to the motorists, safety, pedestrian accessibility, benefit versus cost, constructability, a lot of different ways we evaluated these options, but the single lane roundabout option was identified as the alternative that really performed best and met the needs that were identified by MDT and the public at previous public outreach efforts. So roundabouts will improve safety and traffic flow over the interchange while limiting future costs and impacts. So these roundabouts will only have one lane. The southbound off-ramp is a sort of exception because it will have 2 lanes as it enters the roundabout, one for left and through traffic and one for right turns only, kind of similar to how it is right now at the intersection. But what this does is allow the traffic turning right onto Airport Road to not have to stop at all or enter the roundabout and not be held up by traffic trying to turn left. So in addition to the sidewalk on the bridge, there'll be new sidewalk that will extend from the north roundabout to just beyond the south roundabout to tie into the commercial area by Town Pump. So the sidewalk will be at least 5 foot wide, and it'll meet the standards of the American Disabilities Act requirements for accessibility for the visually and physically impaired. And so these roundabouts have also been designed to accommodate large trucks. So the center island has a truck apron, which is shown above in dark red in the graphic. The intent of this apron is to allow the rear tires of the trailer of a semi to track into the center area of the roundabout as the driver steers around the outside travel lane. So the apron is low and almost flat. So trucks easily mount the curb with really minimal load shift and driver discomfort. So most oversized loads will even be able to pass through the roundabouts. And as designed that the roundabouts progress, extra truck aprons, probably even on the outside of the curb, will be provided to fit even the largest trucks that are on the road. So another benefit of these roundabouts for large trucks, though, is their ability to keep traffic moving and not require a hard stop. So, in a traditional stop sign intersection, trucks have to come to a complete stop. And then as each car ahead of them moves forward, the trucks have to move forward incrementally until they get to the main road. So a similar situation occurs with a traffic signal when it's red. The additional time it takes for those trucks to pick up speed and go through all their gears after coming to a complete stop tends to slow the traffic flow and increases the length of the lines behind them of waiting traffic. So a roundabout allows for trucks to continue moving, although sometimes pretty slow, but a complete stop is rarely necessary. So skilled truck drivers too, they carefully evaluate when they pull up to a roundabout, and they kind of time their gaps so they can eliminate stopping. So this all together allows for better traffic flow and decreases emissions and fuel usage. So an additional southbound lane will be constructed on I-15 between the 10th Avenue South and the Gore Hill interchanges. So the close proximity of the interchanges, as well as that steep grade when you're headed south, really causes trucks especially to struggle to gain speed and merge into that faster traffic after they enter at 10th Avenue South. And also making this section a little more difficult is the fact that approximately half of the vehicles that get on the interstate at 10th Avenue South exit immediately again at Gore Hill. So an additional lane will allow those vehicles to remain on the outside and not merge into traffic just to exit again, and for trucks to gain speed before merging into that faster traffic. The additional lane will end at the Gore Hill interchange. So improvements will also be made to the northbound on-ramp at Gore Hill, but the extent of those modifications is still being determined. During analysis of how traffic was using the current Gore Hill interchange, it was noted that the northbound ramp intersection was pretty congested and had a lot of turning paths that conflicted with traffic on the frontage road. So the close proximity of the frontage road creates some confusion and often causes cars on the frontage road to have to wait for vehicles, not only on 31st Street Southwest, but on the northbound off-ramp as well. So to alleviate the congestion and make the entire area function more smoothly, the Tri-Hill Frontage Road will be located to the south, so just beyond Town Pump. So if you're starting just past Bish's RV, the road will swing to the right and then connect up further down 31st Street Southwest. So in addition to relieving congestion, moving the frontage road allows for more intersection options at the northbound ramps and provides better accommodations for trucks. So that about covers the proposed changes. So I'm going to turn this back over to Stan Berlin from MDT, and he's going to explain a little bit more about why we selected roundabouts for these intersections.
Thank you, April. So after performing an in-depth safety and traffic analysis of the current and future conditions of the intersections, MDT has determined roundabouts will serve the intersection locations better than signalized intersections. Roundabouts largely reduce severe crashes because they limit dangerous right impact or T-bone collisions, and they promote a smooth, continuous flow of traffic. Roundabouts with truck aprons, as April mentioned, give trucks and other large commercial vehicles extra space to safely make the turns. The truck apron is specially designed with a flat slope and low height to accommodate low clearance vehicles and trailers. Roundabouts provide a continuous flow of traffic and a natural traffic calming effect by forcing drivers to slow down and pay attention to their surroundings. Roundabout studies by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety and Federal Highway Administration show that roundabouts typically achieve a 90% reduction in fatality collisions, a 75% reduction in injury crashes, a 40% reduction in pedestrian crashes, a 37% reduction in overall crashes. MDT has found similar safety results at intersections in Montana where roundabouts have been installed. Roundabouts also result in fewer delays, fewer stops, and less fuel consumptions than stoplights and stop signs. Now I'm going to turn this over to Brandon to talk about the next steps in the project and the public involvement process.
Thank you, Stan. So the next few slides, we're going to talk about the next steps and how you can continue to be involved in the project. So right now we are in the design phase. Following these online meetings, we're going to collect the public input here, and then through an online survey as well, we're going to look at some continued environmental and design analysis, and we'll use all that to help finalize the design plans and then develop the construction plans. As we said, as I think Jim said earlier, MDT does plan to hold in-person public meetings if and when it's possible in the future to share any information about the project and to gather information as well. And all that sharing of information will help us to develop the final plans and the construction plans. Some of the other online or public involvement tools that we'll be using are online meetings, mailers, news media, social media, and continual updates to the project website. In 2021, we plan to come back with the final designs for the interchange and show those to the public. And like we said earlier, we're hoping that those are in-person meetings. Jim also mentioned that construction is several years out, likely beyond 2025, which is largely depending on funding. I mentioned the online survey earlier. So the online survey is posted to the project website. We'd encourage you to go online and take that survey. It'll cover a lot of the information that you received today at the presentation, but there is also the slides available from this presentation on the website that you can view before taking the survey again as a refresher. And the recording of this meeting will be posted onto that website as well in the next day or so. So earlier I mentioned that I'm working on the public involvement. and as a consultant. So my job here is to help communicate project information with the public. So developing the presentation, developing information that's going to go out to the public at key milestones, whether it's we're looking for some input on the project, or if we're giving project information out during construction. So the online survey has a couple of features with it that not only are we looking for information about how you use the interchange, but we're also wanting to know what's the best way to communicate with you about project information, both now and then during construction. As construction comes about, we want to see what kind of tools are the best to use that we can most efficiently reach you. So please share that survey with your friends and family as well. So keeping the public informed is a priority for MDT, and communicating during the development and the construction of the project is important to the success of the project. If any of your friends and family were unable to participate, please direct them to the project website where they can view the recording and take the online survey. Again, we'd like to thank you for participating in today's online session and in the project. If you have any comments or questions at any time, you can be sure to contact me, and then I will make sure we get your comments onto the project team to see who is the most appropriate to respond to your questions or comments. So with that, I think we're going to end the presentation portion, and we're going to move into the Q&A session. So Kate, do we have some questions that have come in?
Yes, we do. So I will start with the first question we received. Brandon, if you could answer this. Dave asked, what is a public involvement contractor?
Hi, Dave. Yeah, so MDT has hired RPA as the engineering consultant, and then we work with RPA and MDT to help develop the materials into materials that we can present to the public. As far as we do the presentations, graphics, we work with the media to get the information out, website. This presentation is an example of that. During construction, we do a lot of outreach as far as email updates. Sometimes there's text messaging, social media, those kind of things. So our job really is to convey the project information to the public, and then to take the public's input back to the project team to be incorporated into the project and the design.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandon. The next question is from Jesse, and I think April and Jim are both going to answer this. It's, with a second overpass, wouldn't it be advantageous to eliminate the two smaller roundabouts and create one giant roundabout that spans the interstate highway? This could be accomplished by constructing the second overpass to the south of the current overpass.
Hi, Jesse, this is April. And so that's a really interesting question, because I know you probably see in the more urbanized places around the country that you will see roundabouts on top of a highway interchange. Generally, what we find is the most expensive part of an interchange is the overpass structure. And then probably the next would be the ties into that new structure. So although this idea would work great in an area that has a lot of traffic and a lot of funding, we really try to keep the costs low. And one of the ways to do that is to keep the structure shorter and narrow as it needs to be, and not overbuild. So also with a new interchange, that provides new costs that we have to connect to. We have to buy new land. And it really does change the way traffic moves. We need to be really cautious about the people that own land near where a new interchange would come in. I'm going to pass this over to Jim too, to see if you wanted anything more to talk about finances there, Jim.
Yes, thank you, April. The interstate system is also heavily involved with the Federal Highway Administration. And because of that, we work with them when designing and building projects that has anything to do with federal highways and the interstate system. So this bridge is is going to be a huge program that we'll undertake, leaving the current one in place, putting this new one in, and trying to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So part of this whole planning process that we go through is constrained financially with Federal Highway Administration also. So the costs that we look at today, as I mentioned, construction probably will not take place till out to 2016. So the costs that we look at today will need to include inflation and a number of different things for when we look at construction in the future. So we're constrained by federal highways and what they're allowing us to do to their interstate system. And we're also constrained by what we can afford to pay for within our program. And so those two things will lead to the design decisions that we determine.
Thanks, Jim and April. Our next question is from Dave. During last year's public meeting, it was admitted by MDT personnel that a 4-lane bridge will be inevitable in the future as homes, businesses develop on Gore Hill. Why not build a 4-lane bridge now since you're building a new bridge anyway? And I'm gonna have Scott jump in and answer that one.
Sure, thanks. I guess what I can start with saying at that first meeting, I don't recall those conversations, those specific ones, but what I can say is when we've looked at the traffic data and the analysis, looking out into the future, we are making sure that what we design and build, today or when this gets constructed, can last a minimum of 20 years from the roadway standpoint, and more like 50 years when we look at the bridge. And so our projections as we're looking out into the future, we don't see the need for additional lanes, recognizing that most of the traffic using the interchange, especially coming from 31st Street Southwest, is getting right on to the interstate. So it's actually not going over the structure. So our volumes there that we're projecting aren't really pointing to the need for additional lanes other than what we're looking at now with 1 lane in each direction.
Perfect, thank you, Scott. And our next question is from Dave, and it says, moving Tree Hill Frontage Road to the south is a horrible idea. This pushes all the traffic for businesses and residents for South Gore Hill to run the gauntlet between the 2 very busy truck stops and hotel currently located there. This does nothing to account for additional traffic for new future development. It's best for safety reasons to keep the frontage road exit entrance point roughly where it currently is. And April and Scott, if you guys want to jump in just to comment on that.
Yeah, I might have Scott talk about traffic first, and then I can talk about the design after that.
Yeah, I think they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, we do, definitely at that first meeting, we did hear some concerns about that short segment of 31st Street Southwest where, we have a lot of approaches and a lot going on between, the Town Pump, the Crystal Inn, and the Flying J on the other side. And so we recognize we might be adding a little bit more traffic through that segment. The challenge, really comes from a design standpoint in that the current location of that frontage road, trying to fit that within the ramps is just really challenging without having major impacts to Town Pump there right on that corner. And so we're trying to balance, the traffic flows, the impacts to adjacent properties, and everything else going in there. I guess maybe April, if you want to touch on more of that design side.
Yeah, you covered that pretty well, Scott. Maybe just a little bit more of, that if we were to well, every one of the alternatives we looked at, where there was stop signs, traffic signals, or roundabouts, that odd road really did cause a lot of problems. And even if you consider a traffic signal, if it was there, you'd see that those two roads coming in from the same location don't really even work for a traffic signal. For a roundabout, you would have to have a 5-legged roundabout, which we really would prefer not to do because they're a little bigger and maybe a little bit more confusing. And so moving that Tri-Hill frontage road from that area really did allow us to really look at signals again and look at roundabouts where, with it at its location where it is now, without being moved at all, we were pretty much stuck with stop signs. So moving that just makes everything a lot simpler. There'll be minor improvements to 32nd Street. We did get a lot of complaints about the super elevation was very, very steep, and it is, and it will be flattened. And that will certainly help with moving traffic when it's slippery and for people turning off and on. The frontage road design itself has not really been completely settled yet, but it does also bring some more opportunity for the frontage road to serve more parcels as well as than it does now.
I would also maybe just, touch on the fact, we did look at a 5-legged roundabout at that intersection to kind of address exactly that concern about keeping the Tri-Hill frontage road where it's at and tying it in. Again, the size became very large, and we're having some pretty major impacts to town pump. They have, fill tanks that are right in close proximity to that intersection. They have their gas pumps that are right there. And so just trying to deal with all the, physical and site challenges that are out there, it just gave us a lot more opportunity to make a better design by relocating that. Again, we do know, obviously, we'll be adding a little bit more traffic to that segment, but we hope with some other improvements and just by generally improving traffic conditions, at the ramps and other intersections, providing more spacing, that it'll be an overall safer condition.
Great, thank you, April and Scott. We have another question from Jesse, and I'll have April answer this. It's, as the major north-south corridor, we see a fair amount of oversized truck traffic, over length and over width. Will these two smaller roundabouts hinder the oversized traffic?
So that's a really good question, because roundabouts carry general highway traffic very, very well, but it does get a little challenging when we get these oversized loads, like say the windmill blades that you see on the interstate. And to be honest, they cause a challenge everywhere they go. And our intent when we put these roundabouts in will be that they will accommodate the same size vehicles that can go through them now. So to enable us to do that, what we generally do is take our designs and we actually ship them off to one of the major carriers in the country. And they mostly do the windmill, but that tends to be our worst vehicle on the road at this time. And they take our designs and they run them through a computer program that simulates their traffic movements. And then we can take those and do what we need to do with the roundabouts to make sure that these oversized trucks can go through, which generally means we add some outside truck aprons. So, I talked a little bit about the one in the center for tracking over, but there will probably be some extra concrete and lower curb on the outside as well. So they can pull up and over that curb and then still make the turns through the interchange like they did before. It does take a little more time, I would say, because they do need to, ahead of time, take down some signs, and we'll make it so the signs are really easily removable. However, these oversized trucks have to file their route plan prior to going on any federal road or MDT road. And so they will know ahead of time and be told ahead of time that they need to make provisions for removing those signs before they get there. It does change the design of the roundabout pretty significantly. Like if these big trucks weren't going to be on there, what you saw today would be the design, because it would carry all the interstate traffic that we need to carry. But as we progress, you will see changes coming to that design as we incorporate all these trucks.
Hey, April, I wanted to jump in real quick on something regarding the previous question about, the relocation of Tri-Hill Frontage Road. It was noted here on our chat about, the vehicles being able to turn in and out of, Town Pump and those businesses. There is today a center two-way left turn lane in that segment of 31st Street Southwest. Is there, maybe you can talk to the consideration for that segment of road and if that two-way left turn lane would remain and maybe how that would help some turning vehicles and some of those concerns.
Sure. Pretty much what you see out there today is what will remain on 31st Street. There is a little bit of improvement to the approaches and the way that trucks are accessed or vehicles are accessing the businesses along there. And as I mentioned before, we'll flatten that super elevation. It's pretty steeply banked towards Town Pump right now. And I think that was left over from when that road was just a rural road with nothing on it. But now it's definitely more of an urban road and there's a lot of people trying to turn and stop. And so we'll be removing that bank and making it much, much flatter. But in general, it will look pretty much the same. As it curves around the corner towards the interstate, it'll curve into the roundabout. But that's generally about the only difference on what you're going to have to drive if you're pulling down 31st Street and just going onto the interchange.
Thanks. And one other thing I would note too there is regarding that intersection with Tri-Hill Frontage Road and, where it intersects with Airport Drive, 31st Street Southwest today. We heard a lot about challenges with vehicles that are on the frontage road and trying to take a left, to either get onto the interstate or to head towards the airport and having challenges with doing that. And so one benefit of pulling that intersection on the other side of Town Pump is that movement, that left turn movement in particular becomes easier because we have fewer vehicles that are conflicting with that movement because a lot of people coming off the interstate and going right into Town Pump, would be doing that before they hit that intersection. So we see some benefits from that standpoint too.
Great, thank you. It looks like, Brandon, there's haven't received any other questions. If anyone has questions, now's the time to let us know. We did actually just get one from Dave, and he says, so buying the additional property necessary for the frontage road reroute is less expensive than working with Town Pump and buying a corner of their property to rework current road layout issues.
So I can jump in here then.
Okay.
To be completely honest, we haven't gotten right of way is really late in the process when we actually go out and we appraise and evaluate right of way. So we make some assumptions on right of way cost when we initially start these projects. The problem with relocating parts of Town Pump is that they have some very expensive signs and they have a bunch of tanks in that corner. So although it's a very small piece of property, there's a lot of valuable stuff on it. There's also a pile of utilities, and they're pretty important utilities. They feed all the way up the interstate, and they actually feed a vast amount of the valley up there as well. So even though it looks like it would be much cheaper to take that corner, those costs would be very huge. I don't know, I can't tell you offhand if that's going to be the same cost as buying the property for the frontage road, because we don't know kind of the extent of all that Town Pump has in that corner. And we don't know how much that they would feel that would cost for them to remove all of it and relocate it elsewhere onto their property. So in our minds, it's a bit of a wash, because we do have to buy that piece of property, but it will be rural land that has no utilities or improvements on it. It does improve the value of the land there, having that access. So we would, consider that too when the road goes through, that it likely is just less expensive land than the land in that corner, regardless of the other improvements that Town Pump has already done in the corner that we would need to take to not move the Tri-Hill frontage road.
Hi, April. This is Stan. I'd like to add one more thing to the frontage road and why it's an advantage to move it. One of the things we also consider, and it's been brought up, I heard early in this meeting, is the potential growth down there on other developments that are coming in. And what we looked at with the realignment there is, in the future, if traffic picks up, we have a lot more better ability to install a higher form of traffic control, whether that's a roundabout or signal or something else there. That gives us a lot more flexibility than to having it right there at the town pump. Again, as April pointed out, the right of way is very tight, and to improve that intersection more as a standalone intersection with its own traffic control be extremely difficult with all the ramp traffic and the proximity of the ramp. So that was one other thing we looked at when we were considering the Tri-Hill frontage road.
Great, thank you, Stan. We have one more question that April, I believe you'll be able to answer. It's wide enough for wide farm equipment to pass through.
So yeah, we do look at farm equipment too, because it obviously it has its own unique challenges as well. And what we look for in the farm equipment is that we make everything where they would pass through low, so that their equipment can kind of pass over our improvements, and they can fit through the roundabout without any problem. So when I talked about it before, when I talked about how we send these off to the commercial drivers to have them run their vehicles through our designs, we do the same thing in-house. We have a program that we use, and we can pick just about any piece of equipment you can think of, and we can simulate how they drive through our roadways and our intersections and roundabouts. So what we do is we run, whatever pieces of farm equipment that usually has the worst impact, we'll run through our designs and make sure that you can still pass through. So we do try to pass anything that can pass through this intersection now, should be able to pass through the intersection when we're done.
Great, thank you, April. We have about 10 more minutes. If anyone else has any other questions, you can send them in.
Thanks, Kate. I'd also like to remind everybody that we will be including a recording of this presentation, and it will include the question and answer session in the recording as well. That'll be posted onto the website. Look for that. It should be there by Thursday. I think if doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in, I think we'll probably go ahead and end the online session. And like we talked about earlier too, on the project website, there's a survey that you can fill out to give us more information. And then you can also submit comments to myself or through the website. And my email is brandon@rbci.net. And we will respond to your comments and questions through there as well. So. It looks like we may have some issues with people here receiving audio. We've had a couple of people lose audio, but nope, just a few cases. So hopefully everybody was able to listen in and participate in the presentation today, and we thank you for your valuable time.
Thanks, Brandon.